have your cup of coffee. Make sure you're comfortably seated. We've got there as well. Thank you so much for coming. The first few days of the conflict, what was in your mind and how did you react?
Well, with a background on Wall Street, we're always taught that in a moment of crisis, there's always opportunities. So we don't panic, we just stay calm and try to see what the opportunities are. Not from a business perspective only, but in taking care of your team and in managing your personnel. COVID was a good teaching example of how well the Emirati government responds in crises. So the confidence from day one was there, because seeing how the government reacted to COVID, and we were shut down the least of any country, any major country, and opened up first with the least impact to business. Our numbers during COVID were record numbers. And during this crisis as well, we're doing better than before the crisis, which I think I've spoken to Nadia about this, and I've noticed that in fine dining, they're more impacted, and small cafes and local brands are doing better. And I think people are looking for a sense of community, and that's what we're seeing. So from a personnel standpoint, we knew our team would be safe because the government's doing a good job in keeping us safe. So the only thing I decided that we had to manage is the social and the emotional well-being of our team and keeping them calm. That was the only concern really, because other than that, I think the way the government dealt with it instilled a lot of confidence that you can continue and trying to bide your time until this is over, because a lot of businesses are more relying on tourism. But you know that if you can just stay stable until this is over, you should be fine.
Nice. So aside from all of the things that everyone's mentioned, and knowing that the government was taking care of us and feeling very fortunate to be in such a a safe situation, it was really a feeling of kind of helplessness, having watched the industry and the homegrown restaurant community build itself up over the last 12 years. Suddenly seeing them under such pressure was really, I think, quite difficult for those of us who love the industry and didn't really know how we could help. So another friend of mine, Flo, in between kind of like coffees and missile alerts and managing our kids, we decided to see what we could do to support the industry. And after talking to people, we realized that there's just a lack of data. And so there's a lack of kind of understanding of what's actually happening on the ground. So we looked at historical precedent. So as you said, we looked at COVID, we looked at other things that had happened around the world, and we kind of put together a report that showed within 12 to 24 months, most businesses after a shock like this have recovered to at least their baseline, if not improved, in tourism destinations. And we also did a hospitality kind of sentiment barometer. So we talked to 30 industry leaders and who manage about 400 venues across the city. And we found exactly what you're saying. It was the community venues that were, some were up 40, 30% on their forecasts. The fine dining venues, we found some were down 70 to 80%, very uneven across the city. And what was really overwhelming though was the sense of positivity. So I think it was like 70+% felt that in 12 months time, it was going to be, things would turn around. There was a feeling that this was not a structural disruption, this was just a temporary kind of blip. I think Panchali from Atelier House, she likened it to summer. She said it's treating it like a summer season, looking at what they can do better, how they can improve their operations, and coming back stronger. So I think it really shows the resilience. I know we talked about not wanting to use that word, but I think it does show the resilience of the industry, and also the fact that I think Dubai really rallied around the restaurant community and went to its community venues and places that it loves.
Your absolute tours telling you, and how are they becoming more creative with their offerings right now? Because right now, expats, locals are ready to show up. but how are they bringing in the diners, the customers?
Yeah, I think we've seen different ways of trying to do that, and we've seen different sentiment from some chefs and from some restaurateurs. There's a big WhatsApp group that probably people in this room are in, where there's chefs and restaurateurs picking a different restaurant within that group every week to go and try. I think that's great. I mean, why not do that when you can? I think there's a much wider scope than that to look at. I would quite like to see those people turn up at a restaurant that isn't one of theirs and maybe fill up an empty restaurant instead of one that's already full. But, that's my opinion on that. But anything to help is good. We've also seen some chefs kind of hit out saying, where is everyone? I thought you talk about loving our restaurants, but you're not here. Well, where are you? Support us. And we've seen some quite negative feedback to that and saying, well, we've lost our jobs as well. We've lost our income. So why should we come and spend 1,000 dirhams in your place? If you're talking about community, why is it so expensive to come to your restaurant? So I think in those early days, there was a lot of confusion about what the right message was, and certainly at that point I was still looking after Caterer Middle East at that point. And over the last 4 or 5 years I tried really hard to get the team to focus a lot more on those local restaurants and the local stories. And I think if you look back at who's been on the cover over the last few years, you'll see a lot of these people that we're talking about that are your Akmals and Panjalis and people like that have set up their businesses here and launched restaurants here. So for me, it was more about trying to be responsible as a journalist and trying to not sensationalize and scaremonger, which is always easy to do in crises because it gets more people to like your Instagram posts or click on the website. But when you're acting as a kind of a voice for the industry back to the industry, I think you have to be a little bit more careful. So we were having a lot of conversations with people about what they were doing, and of course there's a lot of discounts in places, but is that a long-term strategy? Probably not. Once you devalue something, it's very hard to replace that value that suddenly you've said isn't there. So I think what we've seen more successfully is places that have, I'm going back to another COVID word, but they've pivoted. So it's not necessarily offering the same as they were before, but probably by necessity, they've had to re-engineer the menu, they've maybe had to reevaluate their timings. Their staffing might be down, so maybe they can't open all day every day. They might not be able to get the ingredients that they could get before, or maybe they can't afford the new prices of them because another strain is not just people aren't turning up or aren't here, it's that their ingredients cost a little bit more now. And I know in the coffee industry, the rising price of beans over the last couple of years is not stopping either, right? So I think it's one of those things where there's a lot of different things affecting those restaurants right now, and how each restaurant is trying to deal with it will impact their long-term success. Are you slashing prices and trying to get people in just to fill it up, or are you going, you know what, maybe we just start offering something quite different at the moment? So Moonrise, for example, is a good example of that, where it's normally 1,000 dirhams a head for a 10-course menu, or however many courses it might be, and now it's 3 courses for 200 dirhams, and they've partnered with Carne Store to provide the meat, and it's a collaboration. And there's a lot more media and storytelling about that. So I think anybody who's looking at that side of it is probably going to come out of it a lot better in the long run.
Were you at Moon? What was the thinking behind that? And tell us all about where your head was at during that first week, Khalid.
Absolutely. Let's picture UAE and the government steps at the beginning. Let's picture the past, what we went through. 2008, the financial crisis, natural disasters, COVID, and now war. So after all these incidents, we became stronger, much more stronger, and the government proved that. We got a lot of speculation that the country will fade away and so on and so on, but with the government, with the people, with the investors, we say resilience, and we made it through. This is a big challenge for us, of course, currently, and especially for the logistics part. So the new steps is the green corridors, opening, different ports from Oman, from Horfakan, or from Jeddah. These different, alternative solutions for the businesses to remain in business and so on. For the coffee industry, of course, I got a lot of calls, local, internationals, from many support from the industry, checking on us, how we are doing in the coffee business and with the supply. Yes, the logistic part plays a big role. So many companies are waiting for the shipment in the queue line. The difference is with Jabal Ali, our friend Marco from DMCC here, he knows exactly what's happening over there. But 50,000 containers per day receiving to Jabal Ali port compared to 5,000. See the big difference impact as well. So most of the business went down. Yes, we keep the operation low. We don't close the businesses, okay? And that's why we maintain, till we get the government support. Already called from government, they form a committee, they're going to support businesses. For COVID, it happened. So when a business goes down, what happened? He defaulted payment for the rent and then his operation costs and so on. So the government, what they did, they stopped even the eviction notice from the rent committee. So they make sure the business is running fully as well.
That's a good point. When you see restaurants closing down, for example, and I know I don't want to sound insensitive, but let's touch on that for a minute. It's the morale of the population that's being affected. You can add to that.
Yeah. So obviously I sit on the other side of the conversation from a lot of the restaurateurs here. As a landlord, I have to be careful what I say because there might be tenants in the room. But we are looking at it, of course. We're not waiting for the government to necessarily. I know they're going to react. I know they're going to put in a policy to support you. But we can do our part as well. So of course, I've already sat down as soon as this started and had a conversation with my retailers, with the tenants. One by one, tried to reach out to them, see how they're doing, and see what's happening. At least for our latest venue, a lot of them are still fitting out, so they're mainly facing delays in sort of shipping of their items, and they've asked for sort of extension. That's easy for me to do, right? Like just to give them a bit more time than stipulated in the contract, for example, to get them started. Like let's alleviate the rent a little bit longer until they can open. So we're doing that actively, and we're trying to support our tenants as much as we can. The good news is, as you've mentioned, Jennifer, I think you said quite well that there's a couple of businesses, homegrown businesses that are doing really well, to be honest. And I have to say that's mainly because of the community, like you said. The community has come together, and they've come out and they're supporting a lot of cafes, and that's really where most of my tenants are. So it's good to see some of my tenants are doing well on that front as well. So. But even then, this is now, and I'm still having a conversation with them actively and seeing how things are panning out. So there is some people still doing well, and we continue to try to support them. But we're trying to be proactive, I would say, not reactive. That's the main sentiment, I would say, from my side.
They are there to serve the people that are close to them, and that's, for me, why it's doing well.
Is that something you're seeing as well, Jennifer? Community, areas where there's loads of residences, buildings, villas, those are the ones that are doing really well, especially if they're homegrown. Community cafe for many people. I would go to the Palm instead of Al Wasl, for example, because I'm likely to bump into people I know there. And your cafes are always full, but I'd like to know, there are many challenges, like what Khalid mentioned, supply chain, operations. Are you rethinking how you're running the business? If you recover in Q3, Q4, what are you going to change?
Well, right now, Joy's over there is probably panicking. Yes, we have to rethink a lot of things that we're doing. For example, we had coffees that were ready to ship right when this happened. And now, because we don't do mass volumes, we can afford to do air freight because it's smaller volumes, but it's right on the limit. For those not in the coffee industry, everything comes by ship if you're doing massive volumes. But for a relatively small brand like ours, we we do things air freight, and because it's not that much, the cost is much higher than doing it by sea, but it's manageable because our price point's higher than your typical cafe. But now the air freight costs have quadrupled in most cases. So we just reached out to our suppliers and said, you can keep it, we'll let you know. So we have a lot of coffee that are sitting in place, and we will let you know. We have projects that we were going forward with, which is a good thing because now those projects are paused and we're using the coffees that were slated for those for our own consumption. So Dubai is in for a treat because a lot of our super expensive coffees that were slated for special projects, Joe is like, maybe we'll just use this and sell it at a normal price point. So that's what we've been doing. But before I turn it over to you, I just wanted to say, the idea when we were discussing an event like this was that everyone can gather and share information, see what everyone else is doing and learn from that. And I will say the value for me has already been paid off just by the statistics that you mentioned, because I'd seen that anecdotally, and we know that anecdotal data is not hard evidence. So to see it and then to hear that it's backed up by numbers, I think that's made my day so far.
Data doesn't certainty. And I know we're going to have a very busy second half of the year. Everyone's telling me that events are pushed back to Q3, Q4. But while we're waiting for that recovery period, what are we doing? I know we're going to drink lots of coffee because you've got lots of stock, but what are we doing in terms of business and operations?
Getting better. In situations like this, it's an opportunity to get better at what you do. We're working with a lot of training. Nadia's helping out back of house. We're looking at everything from top to bottom and saying during this period, how do we get better so that when everything comes back online, we are able to differentiate ourselves from everyone else.
So we're going to be drinking even better coffee in the near future as Garfield trains his team and gives them more, upskill them, let's say. Is that something that's happening in
His Highness Sheikh Saud? And really the message that was coming across from the people there was that this is an opportunity to get better, and that it's a challenge for Dubai to kind of not reinvent itself, but take things to the next level and to innovate. That said, it is also a really tough time for a lot of people. So the data that we looked at was that, it's minus 27% on average. And, you're breaking even in restaurants at around 20%, I believe. So, people are having to dip into their cash reserves. And, it's a tough time. So people, I think, are those who have the luxury to kind of stop, look, reflect, get better are doing that. And I think other people are making decisions to ensure their survival. I don't mean to be too gloomy.
meetings, trying to do something they've never done before? Is that something you've seen in the industry poll? Because I haven't seen anyone sitting idly, miserable, complaining about the situation. They hit the ground running when this started.
I think there's probably some people sitting miserably at home having lost their jobs. But
secretly,
the ones that are still out there, I think everybody can appreciate it's tough, right? So even if you have lost your job or your salaries have been reduced or whatever, I think everybody can appreciate this is an extraordinary time. So even though it might be upsetting and it might be a personal hit, then I don't think anybody really could have a go at their boss or whoever it is that's had to make that choice. What I think could be done, and I thought it might happen as we came out of COVID, was especially with hotels, which are really suffering. There are still people here that will go to restaurants, but there's nobody really coming in to stay in hotels. I think hotels are always much slower to move than restaurants are when it comes to innovation and new ways of monetizing things. But there are meeting rooms there that aren't being used. There are catering facilities there that aren't being used. So I would say there's a chance for hotels in particular to start monetizing those spaces that are empty, especially if your front of house isn't there anymore, your valet isn't there anymore, the rooms are empty. What about using those spaces as cloud kitchens? Or what about using those meeting rooms for co-working spaces? Because there's a lot of people, myself included, at the moment, I'm in a different place every single day, and they're always full. There's spaces for desks in co-working is at a premium right now, and there are hundreds of properties that have got hundreds of rooms within them and Wi-Fi and connection and electricity that I think could be getting used. Restaurants, I think, are doing a great job of doing their best to get back to what they need to be. But I think some other industries could probably be, the hotels could probably be a bit smarter in what they're doing.
I'd really love an Emirati perspective on this. What are you discussing in your circles, in your business circles?
Absolutely. So, basically, during these times when you have difficulties and not having tourists, my coffee museum depends 100% on tourists. And now, of course, all the tourists has been gone. So the approach is going to be different. The opportunity, you have to diversify your business models. This is number one. You depend on the online sales, basically on many deliveries like Deliveroo, Talabat, and so on. Plus, you do community events, which can help to boost your business as well. And collaboration with other sectors or other industries as well can help during that time. This is a major part. I remember that during COVID, that we did one of the major community survey to support the frontline doctors, that for drive-through clinics, hospitals, and so on. We got sponsorship for all these frontline. It was apart from, I think, Mocha was involved, many other companies as well were involvement. During this time, we are doing an initiative. I cannot talk about it, okay, but hopefully in future you're going to see it as well. So this community is very important. Some part they support some businesses, and some part support even the frontline people who's working 24/7 as we speak. I've seen some initiative, social media, some influencers. They mention if your business has been affected, can you just put your name of the business, and maybe we will do some initiative and come bring some salespeople to boost this business, which has happened already, and some influencers from local influencers again, so on. Yeah.
Yes, we've seen a lot of those initiatives.
Touches on, I think Abdullah said about the younger demographic, is that we've never valued the younger demographic before because we've been comfortable with our clientele. Our clientele are mainly Emiratis of a certain status, and generally people in our category, and so we never look at the younger demographic as a demographic we were interested in, and I think that was a huge mistake. So we're innovating, we're coming up with new products, we're coming up with new ways to communicate and reach out to that demographic, because they're there, they have disposable income, and we need to show them that we're interested in them, because why would they come to us? So
does that mean you're going to offer iced Spanish latte?
No. We will do it in a more innovative way.
More innovative, okay. I'd like to see more coffee flavors, more coffee innovations. Let's head over to Abdullah. Where do you want to see your investment before the end of the year?
These are both important questions. I mean, right now, I just want, it's more important that everybody comes out of this okay, right? I'm not looking this year to break records, right? And I think that's a manageable expectation. We've had we had a great 5 years, and it's okay if things are staying steady right now, right? And I think that's something that landlords need to hear, is it's okay if your rent doesn't go up this year, it's fine. And that's an expectation I have. In terms of my tenants, I want to get to a point where they're okay and they're doing fine. I want to hear from them that I'm doing okay and I'm doing fine, and I'm going to be with you for the next 3-4 years as planned. That's what I want to really hear, right? I don't want, as much as we can do to support them, that's my objective. Like I said, I try my best to make sure that they're doing fine. And then on the front of the the business center, the smaller businesses, we really did all that just to support the local business. We even offer, I think, like a 30-day free trial to start with as well. So we're trying to maybe expand that and see what we can do to get people to especially support them in these kinds of times of transition where people are maybe downsizing, moving offices. There's no better time, I think, to push something like that and to push a good promotion with that. So yeah, I think to Garfield's point about reaching out to the younger generation, they're there. They're hard to reach sometimes, but they're there, and I think you're doing a great job. He did a fantastic job catering one of our events, and he did some beautiful innovations in terms of the presentation. And I mean, to me, it spoke to that community very, very well. So I think doing more of that, reaching out to more. I want to thank him as well for reaching out to me to come to these events, meet everybody here, and I hope to have a few minutes with everybody at the end. You're doing the right thing, and I think more of that. And I'm really privileged and really happy to be here. And speaking as a member of the young community, but everybody here looks young. I'm not going to say I'm the youngest person here, but you know what I mean. So we're trying our best. I think you guys are already doing the right thing.
Even during the natural disaster, while leakage, I put a bucket. So customer come in.
But looking to the future, what do we see in the coffee industry, in your association, and of course at the museum?
I want to focus more on the trade show part because of my involvement as well. Basically, we during last World of Coffee, we had around 2,200 companies with so many visitors and so on. The rebooking reached up to 60% of the floor plan for next year. That's confirmed up to date now. For next World of Coffee January. I'm still talks with the Abu Dhabi government ADNIC as well for Global Food Week. We are finalizing the coffee sector in Hall 10. We're going to be situated over there. We also involved with the Salon du Chocolat. So that means the business is still going and the opportunities are still there. And that's a good news. And not to mention the government, what they announced a couple of days back about the Golden Line and the metro. Okay, and you have all the commuters, that's all good news for the FMB as well. And as well, the workspace, which they mentioned about the Dubai municipality, about the workspace in parks as well. That's a unique project as well, which is good news for the, and so on. Imagine with this time of crisis and the government is pushing these mega projects. Also, you have the fintech project next to DRC. So all of this is good news for FMB and coffee as well, of course.
It gives us confidence, really. Now, before we wrap up, I don't want anything.
From what I've seen, a lot of the pressure on how to deal with this is at the agricultural and farm level. But I'm curious, at the retail and consumer level, what can we do to adapt and change with the changes?
I see some of that happening where consumers are more focused on brands that share their values, and it's sort of a tough situation that we're in because we actually are entirely focused on that, and we work with primarily women-owned farms and cooperatives, but we don't push it that much because being in boardrooms with a lot of big companies, I've sort of seen it as a cynical exercise where, I'm not going to say who the brand is, but there's a global brand that everyone knows, and they have these initiatives with the farmers. And I said, well, who does the person who worked with sustainability, who does that person reports to? You would think it would be the CEO, but it's marketing. It's marketing, and that's not unique. And for that respect, what we're doing is genuine and it comes from a good place. We work with women-owned and operated farms. And so from the sustainability practice in the farm, they're doing things above and beyond what their male compatriots or even other farmers are doing. And we help them with that to make it sustainable, and we're paying more for that. So we pay on average 25-30% more from our coffees that are coming from our women-owned and operated farms. To make them more sustainable, not just from an agricultural practice, but as a business model, because most farmers are not paid. They're not paid for the work they're doing. They just aren't. And because of that, the younger generation's not getting into farming. A lot of them are moving to big cities. So you ask what you can do from this side of the world, and it's to be more informed about the coffee you're drinking, see if the brands that you're supporting have those types of initiatives. Even though we don't hide ours, we don't go out and tout it, because I don't want to say to someone, buy my product because I support women. Buy my product because you like it, because it's good. And maybe I would have said that if it wasn't such a cynical enterprise from the big companies, but I think that's it. A lot of these companies will tell you that they work directly with the farmers. That's the model that we use. We trade directly, so there's not a middleman between us and the farmer. We're buying directly from these ladies. They're sending it up to us directly. And it was not a business model, but it's helped us because a lot of these coffees are only available with us. And that's why it's exclusive. You can't get it anywhere in the world. Yemeni coffee, everyone knows Yemeni coffee right now. And Yemeni coffee is very popular, but what you might not know is that a lady that we work with basically put Yemeni coffee on the map. Her name is Fatima Kabir, and she was the first to produce specialty coffee in the entire history of Yemen. Experts were going to Yemen for many decades. USAID was there. I've been there. You sit with farmers, you say, this is how you do it. Well, this is what you do. No one would do it. Fatima was the first woman to say, I want to master this. I want to produce specialty coffee. First specialty coffee in Yemen was from Fatima Kabir in 2012, scored an 87. For those of you who don't know, the old definition of specialty coffee is 80 and above on a scale of 100. And everything 79 and below was C-grade coffee. The definition has since advanced, but she was the first to do that. We won a few competitions with her coffee, and then Yemeni coffee exploded after we organized a trip with the farmers from Yemen to go to Ethiopia to learn modern practices for farming, because a lot of the practices they were using were quite old. And after that, then it just took off. So sustainability is important from the farm perspective, in that if you're doing direct trade, you're more likely to be able to support the farmers because they communicate what they need, and we pay a higher premium for it. When the war broke out, we paid more because their truck was stolen by the Houthis, and we had to pay to replace it. So having that direct relationship, we can support them in their environmental. They don't use fertilizer, but some of the innovative practices that they saw online, they would reach out and say, do you know an expert that can help us with that? We'd reach out to that expert and have video conferences and hold that with them. So there are a lot of brands that are doing things like this, not just us. It's a matter of supporting those brands, so you're helping in the sustainability effort. I hope that answered your question.
Because I don't see many young Emiratis here right now. What is the future of young Emirati men and women that are opening these, what seems sometimes like vanity coffee shops? And how do we bring them more into the real business of coffee, F&B, and so on?
Good question. Where is she? Sarah Al-Mahri. Okay. She is one the most woman-driven of all the local female in our trade show, even community activities. The beauty about our industry, it can connect with many other industries as well. Nowadays, they don't just copy-paste ideas and design and presentation. We are linked with Mocha with the furniture. We are linked with vintage cars. We are linked with the sports. We are linked with jewelry. All these aspects. And we've seen a lot of local female investment in cafe, which reach now even a much higher level. I'll give you one example, how we started and where we reached. In Dubai, we used to do something called Sabado Coffee Club. Okay, Sabado in Spanish means Saturday. So we used to use the first Saturday of every month, we bring sample of coffee, not locally roasted to avoid the conflict, all internationally. And we invite the community to come and cup the coffee. They had zero knowledge about coffee. So we cup, we talk about the cupping score, flavor and aroma notes. And one of the people who was attending this event, her name is Nuran, and she was a coffee enthusiast. She took it so deep to took the Q course. Q course is so expensive and it's very hard. Not only any person can take it, only a green coffee trader. So before she engaged in the coffee industry, among 12 students, she was passed the test. It's very tough. Afterwards, she opened a cafe in Abu Dhabi. It's called Coffee Architecture. She became board member with us also for a certain time period. She couldn't handle the pressure, so she left.
That's not nice.
So basically, in the female engagement, we have a lot. Apart what we do in trade shows as well, we have a brew bar. So basically, all the machines are sponsored from companies, and we give a time slots for companies to bring their coffee and baristas, and so the idea, the visitor can try multiple coffees from different companies. And the female work, engagements a lot from that aspect. Yeah. And if you need more about the female engagement, you can check with Sarah Al-Mahri. She's here as well.